Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks to everyone that watched my video, the first one that I did that I've been meaning to do for a while. Uh, it's posted on my profile for now, on my bio, on Instagram and LinkedIn and other places. But yeah, check it out if you haven't already. Um, and yeah, it's a Saturday morning for me when I'm recording this, so um, just kind of just laying here in my bed and reflecting um, on what I'm gonna do. Last night was a really nice evening. Got to do some Aztec danza practice, and it's always nice, regenerative for me to get to go and have comunidad with my people. And yeah, it was some really good things that we talked about at the end. We do a circle, but there's a couple of things that have been reoccurring themes, and I brought them up yesterday. Especially, there was the topic of depression that came up a couple of times, and I talked about how sometimes when we pray for other person's depression, or maybe we want to pray for other people to get out of a certain state, or we wish that they would see things differently. And um, I was saying in my circle that what I've come to realize is that obviously you can't control the other person, but I'm realizing that when you pray for somebody, it's not just rather than like try to change somebody or fix them or save them, or thinking that somehow they are different than you. Rather than do that, identifying with your own depression, to realize that you also have depression. It's just that it manifests in a different way from what they're going through, right? And so identifying with that and developing that identification, that's where compassion comes from. And and then by the same token is there's possibility, right? That um, if there's depression, then that means that there can also be the opposite of that energy. And so transforming, connecting with that depression, with your own depression, and and then reflecting on that way, it can feel like more spacious place to be when praying for somebody to um, be in a different place, and being perhaps in a place that is more joyful and more full of conviction. And yeah, so anyway, so we were talking about that, and um, I wanted also to mention, it reminded me of, I mentioned in my video that I posted on Pema Chodron. For those that don't know, when things fall apart, it's kind of funny how on the video, like it shows like the opposite way, like backwards or whatever, flipped the text. But it's by Pema Chodron, uh, very famous book. She is a Buddhist monk. I forget what tradition she's with, but um, my friend Allison turned me to this woman, and I'm really thankful to her that she did. Lots of really good stuff. It's been almost 3 years and I still haven't finished reading, because like you have to, like, you read it and you pause and you have to like you reflect on it because it's so packed with so many insights. I highly recommend everybody to get this book. And I'm not the person that like devours books. Maybe that's why, but I like to savor it. So anyways, thank you to my friend Allison for recommending it always. And uh, it's kind of funny because she told me when she mentioned the book, she's like, because she's Asian herself, and she's like, yeah, the author is like this white woman that wrote it. But she's not like, I don't know, she hasn't come across as like co-opting, or like, I don't know, you sometimes there's a lot of like new age like hippiness to it, hippie, like this hippies, white hippies, and it's kind of annoying to run into sometimes those circles where there's like a lack of awareness of a privilege and white privilege or whatever you want to call it. So anyways, that's another topic for another day. But I wanted to say that this woman is for real. Like, she is amazing. She's just so grounded in the Buddhist thinking, and breaks it down for in a way that really you identify with it. So I want to highlight a passage that she mentioned that caught my eye as I was sifting through, and I was laying here in bed, and when I read it to you, it says, it's page 79, widening the circle of compassion. Speaking of circles and speaking of compassion. So it goes, when we talk of compassion, we usually mean working with less fortunate than ourselves, because we have better opportunities, a good education, and good health. We should be compassionate toward those poor people who don't have any of that. However, in working with the teachings on how to awaken compassion and in trying to help others, we might come to realize that compassionate action involves working with ourselves as much as working with others. Compassionate action is practice, one of the most advanced. There's nothing more advanced than relating with others. There's nothing more advanced than communication, compassionate communication. To relate with the other compassion, to relate with others compassionately is a challenge. Really communicating to the heart of being there for someone else, our child, spouse, parent, client, patient, or the homeless woman in the streets, means not shutting down on that person, which means, first of all, not shutting down on ourselves. This means allowing ourselves to feel what we feel and not pushing it away. It means accepting every aspect of ourselves, even the parts that we don't like. To do this requires openness, which is Buddhism. In Buddhism, it's sometimes called emptiness. Not fixating or holding on to anything. Only in an open, non-judgmental space can we acknowledge what we are feeling. Only in an open space where where we're not all caught up in our own version of reality can we see and fear and feel who others really are, which allows us to be with them and communicate with them properly. And I love that, and I think it's maybe that's why it takes such a long time to read it, like for me, because I read it and then I feel the meaning of it weeks later. What this means for me is approaching compassion not in the sense of pity or thinking that that person is less than you, but actually is approaching it from the sense of we are the same. In Christianity, it's called we're sinners. We're both sinners. We're all sinners. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. He's not worse. She's not worse than me. I'm not worse than her or him. We are. There is this level of humanity that we can connect to. And yes, of course, there's situational differences. There's differences in identity. But first of all, to help someone is not to rescue the person, is to be with them and identifying and understanding what their pain is, even though their pain might be different from yours. At the end of the day, it's human pain. And so connecting to that energy and transforming that togetherness in a circle, into instead of pain, joy, or instead of connecting to that opportunity, to that promise, to that, I talked about faith in my last video, right? And so approaching in that sense is less, it's almost like you spend less energy trying to transform something, but rather you're now transforming it together in community, and you are doing it with the help of, you're not just you, but you are part of a whole, part of a community, part of an intention, part of the energy around you, part of the world, and part of this reality, part of earth, part of sky, if you want to talk about energies of the four elements. So anyways, yeah, that's what caught my eye, and having it really present in my life. And just to realize that, like, even me doing this video, right? Like, I'm not, my intention is not to try to change something. My intention is to share because I know that other people have the same um, struggles. And by same, I don't mean the same exact same, but they are human emotions. And so so that was one thing. And then the other thing that I've been meaning to like share forever is this passage which blew my mind about hope and fear. And Pema Chodron talks about hopelessness and death. And it's page 37, so I'm kind of making a note to myself before I lose it, so I can go back to this video and reference it again. But let me see. The word, let's see, for those who want to hold on, she talks about fear. She basically is talking about how faith and fear are the same, they're two sides of the same coin, and it's like a cycle that we get trapped in. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because um, it reminds me so much of the state of this country. So I think this is it. It's, yeah, page 39. The word in Tibetan for hope is rewa. I don't know how to pronounce that. The word for fear is dokpa. More commonly, the word re-dok is used, or re-dok, I don't know, is used, which combines the two. Hope and fear is a feeling with two sides. As long as there's one, there's always the other. This re-dok is the root of our pain. In the world of hope and fear, we always have to change the channel, change the temperature, change the music, because something is getting uneasy, something is getting restless, something is beginning to hurt, and we keep looking for alternatives. Yeah, so that passage, that blew my mind because you could think about Trump, for example, and how he's like the personification of fear, incarnate almost, right? And it's so interesting that you had Obama in the as the previous president, who was all about hope, right? Regardless of his politics and like how that was even manifested into reality, or how there was an undercurrent of the opposite of that in his actions, or even Trump, same thing. You know, whatever, he's fear incarnate, but maybe he's triggering other people, or pushing people to step into their own, you know, best, you know, onto their own light, into their own transformation, so that they can fight against, you know, the energy that he brings, right? And so anyway, so but the point being is that they, when you think about both of them, that's kind of like what you think of at first, or one of the things, at least for me, right? And it makes sense that you had hope, and then you have the counterbalancing energy of fear, and it's almost like even if you get hope again, you're gonna get fear again, because it's a cycle. It's the same size of the, it's two sides of the same coin. Um, and I love this because it talks about liberation from that cycle, and what that liberation can look like. It might seem like beyond the quality of human, but I think it's actually being more human. It reminds me of Nietzsche, that title, "Human All Too Human," or other concepts that he talks about, Ubermensch, you know, the Superman, or um, yeah, other stuff. There's a lot to unpack there, but just throwing out stuff, but that I'm connecting in my own mind. But again, it's not. I'm not talking about like moving beyond enlightenment to like, oh, you know, like now all of a sudden you're not of this world, like you're transcendental, you know, like you float and do supernatural things, but rather actually you tap into that energy of this world and authentic self in this world. um, but there's things that like distract you from it, and one of them is the hope and the fear duality. And maybe for, you know, maybe it's a binary. I mentioned binary in my other videos. Maybe transcending that by binary quality is what perhaps we're moving towards. At least I hope that I want to practice that, because not because I think it's the right or wrong thing, but because I just have a curiosity. And that's what I want to encourage people, or I encourage, by encourage people, I mean I want to encourage myself, so that we're in community to explore that and to see like how do we get out of this cycle, because it always happens, the cycle of like we're sad, we're happy. um where is that middle point? And not in the sense of like automaton or like not feeling, but like that quality between extremes. In Buddhism you call it the middle road, the middle path, not the middle road, because that seems like there's like triggering connotations of compromise and all that shit, but like more in terms of like that middle path, that point between things, when like I like to think about it like breath is like breath, like when you're breathing and like when you're trying to shift your work with your consciousness, and then you don't focus on the exhale or the inhale, but you're focusing on the middle point between those two things. And it's like you trick your mind to step outside of like distractions. So kind of similar to that, to like instead of focusing on one or the other, you start to see the space, the emptiness between those two things. And that's where, for whatever reason, something different happens, right? And so anyways, that's what's been on my mind. Again, I encourage you guys to check my channel, my cousins and I channel. I didn't mention the name, but it's called Que Chingaos Pasa. So in case you didn't catch it, the QT Que Chingaos Pasa is QCP. And it's a way to kind of like with Mark Maron, what the fuck, WTF, but we translated into Spanish to make it more like Chicano sounding. Um, so anyways, encourage you to check it out, that other video, and of course, share this video. And yeah, man, like when things fall apart, highly recommend it. It helped me through. It's helped me through really, really difficult times, and not by like trying to make you happy, but rather by leaning into the the stuff that it's heavy, and that's why it's taking me a while to finish it. But I'm so glad to make progress. Progress, not perfection. Okay, well, have a good rest of the day, everyone. Talk soon.